We'll begin with a reign of terror. A few murders here and there.
Hello, children of the night. Welcome back to Blood and Guts HHN. Tonight, we're back with our second part house review, HHN 33. With me, as always, Mad Matt. How's it going, Matt?
As usual, I'm doing fantastic, Evil Adam, because as we mentioned in the last video, we're at a part now where you can kind of dissect the event.
Yep.
Cut it open, take a look at it. What did we like? What didn't we like? What would we like to see for next year? And that's always fun to do. Like I said, because we've been doing this for for a few years now on YouTube, but we've been doing it for many years, just back and forth between us. So
That's true.
It's very fun to get into it. So without further ado, friends and fiends, let's go ahead and pick up where we left off. The last house we talked about was the House of the Year, Insidious.
Yep.
So we're going to move right down the street to a house that we both were super hyped about, Major Suites.
Major Suites. Oh, yeah.
Adam, go ahead and lead us off. What were your thoughts on this house?
Well, I loved... Now, let me start at the beginning. Let me take it back a little bit. Excuse me. I was worried. Mm-hmm. Because, there's been some stinkers in here. Mm-hmm. We've had Chucky.
So you're talking about the location?
Yes. Okay. We've had Freaky and Black Phone, which Freaky I could take or leave. Black Phone was awesome because I love the film. Mm-hmm. So I was a little hesitant. But seeing this facade, hearing that 1950s music like you get, that doo-wop music like you get in the Scare Zone.
Right.
Going into this house, come on in, don't let other kids eat the candy.
That was great.
That kind of stuff. This house reminded me of old school HHN. And when I say old school HHN, I mean the first year I ever went, 2003, and following. This was a house with mechanical moving objects, great scares, guest-activated triggers. I mean, the sets kind of made me feel like, it felt like a really twisted version of a Tim Burton kind of film. Like with the black and white tiles and the puke and there's candy sitting around, and I was really pleasantly surprised by this house, and slowly it climbed up my list, and we'll get to the actual rankings of where these houses fall later, but I really like this one. What's your thoughts?
This was a house, honestly, where I was truly disappointed in, and it's kind of like you mentioned it earlier about the location of the house and how that one had you worried, and I kind of felt like it actually did constrain on this house.
Okay.
Now I did love the facade, like you're talking about the outside. I thought that was beautifully done. I love the soundtrack going in, like you said, get in here for the children, eat the candy.
Yeah.
Everything you mentioned, I did enjoy. But now being inside the actual house itself, I thought it was dressed out nice, but I thought it was a little too cramped to make me feel like I was actually in the factory.
Right.
Like if it's in a factory, it has to feel more open, see more like of the gadgets that's making the candy, the poisons going in. Like they had some of that stuff, but it was very constrained, very cramped. And then it reminded me why I hate that house location to begin with. Because there's, like I said, I did enjoy Black Phone, but that's probably about it out of all the houses we've been through. There's that Black Phone portion is the only thing I really cared for out of it. Like I said, it still had its positives. Like you said, I love the atmosphere of the house. I loved, like I said, the callbacks of. I did feel like
the callbacks were great, and I'm going to cut you off for just a second. When she pops out, so you have the van which was parked in the Scare Zone with the weapons. Which reminds me of the Talking Heads song. The lyric, got a van, it's loaded with weapons. So she pops out of the back of the van, which is loaded with weapons.
Right.
And I thought that was just great because you're like, there's the van, yes. She pops out with a machete or a cleaver. Right. I thought that was just great. But I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you're fine. So I thought her character was very well done. I thought every scare actor I seen playing Miss Sweets was fantastic.
Yep.
And Major Sweets looked awesome too with his makeup.
His makeup was just great too. You hide the evidence, or destroy the evidence. That was just great.
So like I said, it was a mixed bag for me. Like I said, I was disappointed. It's probably because I had it so hyped up for myself because I love that Scare Zone a couple
Right.
years ago when they had it, and so this one was really high on my hype list. And I was, like I said, I was a little bit let down for it. Like I said, now is it the worst house I've ever been in? Lord, no, it's nowhere close to that. Like even this house being a mediocre house for me, trumps a lot of houses like we talked about in the last episode, like Spirits of the Covenant, Hell Block. Like I said, it still ran laps around that.
Right.
I just would love to see them be able to expand the space and really make it feel like a factory. The story, but now as far as the story goes, top notch. I loved what they were going for, what they went for, and that I did enjoy.
This is one of those houses too that I feel like, and there's a few on this list where I felt like the podcast was one thing, but the house was another, and kind of let the other one down.
Mm-hmm.
This one is one where if you listen to their podcast, where it sounds like the 1950s radio show, where it's like, and now join us as we go on a tour through the candy factory, and it has those 1950s elements,
right,
like an old radio show.
Right.
This one was one where the podcast and the house went together like a hand in a glove for me.
Yes, it did.
And I do like that a lot. But as far as Goblin, let's rank it on our legendary. Yes, Jeff Goldblum scale. This house, I'm gonna go ahead and give it. I'm gonna go ahead and give it 3.5 Goblins.
Yeah, for me, where I'm disappointed, I gave it about 2.5. Like I said, so 2.5 out of 5. It definitely, is serviceable. I can understand what the people that did enjoy it. It's just for me, it kind of took me out of it with those constrained spaces, because in my head the whole time when I'm in there, I just kept wishing to see something bigger.
You wanted a factory setting that was the same size as the Blood Moon town.
Yes, perfect.
But with a factory, and I could see their limitations on how to do that. But I do understand where you're coming from. I do understand.
Yeah, like I said, in that
space, it's impossible.
Yeah, it is about impossible.
But yeah, totally.
But moving right along, then this is a house that once we, like I said, we'll do a tour video later on. But we found out one of our favorite designers did this upcoming house, which is Goblin's Feast, and it's the great Dylan Koloff. So we were both very excited once we found that out to get into this house.
Oh yeah.
And I'll go ahead and start us off. From the opening facade of this one is just fantastic, classic Koloff. You see that chimney just puffing out the smoke, and you see the Goblin's Feast sign when you're walking in, and if you look under it, you see the human chop house.
And then you walk in, what do you got? What's the first two things you notice? Number one, the menu, but you got the smell of almost like a pine.
Yeah.
You have a smell of like a wooden, like a cedar wood or some sort of wood.
Right.
And then you have the smell of the pine behind it, and then you have that Celtic, almost Celtic and Irish or Scots music with the fiddles and the lutes and things, getting you pumped up for going into this thing. That's the first couple of things you notice going in. So yeah.
No, absolutely. And one thing I loved about this one too, it has a lot of great gore. Like I know what we talked about in the previous episode, how Monstrous for me felt like the bloodiest house. This one was not far behind, because you see the guts of the humans where they've gutted them. You see the maggots where it's the rotten flesh.
And you really have to go on the tour to see these things with the lights on.
Yes.
If just you're passing through the house one night, 2 nights, you're not going to see all this. But yeah, you're right. They have the people in the stew. They have the big pot in there. Get back in that pot ingredient, from the. And now our tour guide would not neither deny nor confirm that this was the same cauldron used in the Pumpkin Lord, Wicked Growth. But we believe in our hearts that it was the same cauldron. Get back in there, ingredient, kind of thing. But this house was just so pleasantly surprising, and when you get to that area with the water wheel,
yes.
You got the caves, you got the water wheel, you got the forest where the ogres are coming. You got that great statue there where they're coming out of the bottom of the statue.
The old King Kong hand.
The King Kong hand, and they swear that this hand was moving, but I never saw it move.
I didn't. I know now. We trust Fear and Beer. They've seen it moving.
They've seen it moving, so we'll give them a nod. So we'll believe it that it moves. But yeah, this house was great. And on the Goblin scale, what would you give it?
I'll give it easily a 4.5 out of 5. Like I said, this is a dang near perfect house for me.
Yep.
Like just the design of it. One thing we didn't call out when we're talking about positive, the makeup effects on the trolls, the witches, or
The food is escaping. That guy got me every time, and not because of a scare. He didn't get me with a scare. Just him popping out and going, "The food is escaping." I laughed my ass off every time.
The Goblin King looked at me. We didn't mention him, but that looked awesome too.
Puppet too, by the way. Not we thought it was an animatronic. Turns out,
puppet.
You'll see on the tour, that's a puppet.
So yeah, easily for me, 4.5 out of 5 Goldblums. So how about yourself?
Same. And the only thing stopping it from getting a 5 is it was a little too short.
Yeah.
Had you had about 2 or 3 extra rooms, maybe a more dungeon area, and then had the food is escaping, then I would have really been.
I agree with you. I felt like it could, or not felt like, I wish it could have been longer. But for that being, this is one of the new pop-up tents this year that they made. So I will say it's a whole lot bigger than the old ones they had back in the day. Right. So at least it is an improvement.
And like, not to cut you off, but they're learning they're learning their steps.
Yeah.
Like with a new sport or with a new musical instrument or something, they're learning what they can get away with in these new tents. And I think next year we're going to see them expand a little bit more and a little bit more until you get like some really cool stuff.
Awesome.
But yeah.
Well, moving right along, then we come to one we were pretty hyped about: Monsters Eternal Bloodlines. So I'm gonna kick it to you. What's your initial thoughts on this house?
This is a touchy subject for me because last year I absolutely loved Unmasked. I loved it. Unmasked. I could have slept. I could have ate lunch in there. I could have just sat in there for 3-4 months.
It's your baby.
It's my baby. And this one I had such great hype in my mind, in my heart, my soul, and it just let me down. I feel like let me give you a couple of my nits here about it. I feel like they've taken the bride, who was a very strong character in Bride of Frankenstein Lives. She's almost like in Bride of Frankenstein Lives, she's grabbing Dracula brides and like pulling them out of the air and driving stakes through their heart. In this one, all she does is pop out and scream and pop back in. Also, you killed off Frankenstein. That's a big no-no in my book. It just, the story was convoluted, and I felt like the story they wrote for themselves was too complex. I felt like they wrote a story that's so complex that they could not pull it off, and it shows in the house. Was it beautiful? Yes, there were elements that were beautiful, but also if you missed that scare with the mummy, if you missed that scare with the werewolf, and you missed those key scares where they're on bungees and they're coming for you, and the smoke effect, the lighting effect, everything has to fire at exactly the same moment for you to get those scares. And our first couple of runs we didn't get them, and our last run we did, but still, if you miss it, you miss it. It takes a long time to reset. So it was a little bit of a letdown for me.
I thoroughly enjoyed this house. Now, I still think, even though I say I enjoyed it, I still think it's the weakest of the monster houses that we've experienced.
I agree.
And, well, let me take it back. I did not like the Monsters Unleashed, where it's like the pyramid setting. Like, I love the monsters in it, but I didn't like the story. So I might put them about on par with each other.
Right, that's right.
Because I do, like you mentioned the setting, I love this. I love when you first walk in and you feel that cold.
The cold, that was great.
And the
that was
snow.
great. There were elements that were great.
Yeah, the gothic imagery in there. You had the tombstones. One thing I wish they would have done, I know, I can't remember if we talked about this in a video before, but I know we've talked about it personally. I wish we would have got a house with Van Helsing before we got to the granddaughter. I feel like we skipped over a great house and a great story that we could have connected to this one, and it would just flesh it out a little bit more for me. So I would have loved to seen that legendary battle between him and Dracula, where they kill each other, which they you see snippets of when you're walking through the catacombs.
Right.
And but I love, like you mentioned, the things, and you're exactly right. You have to time them right, because if you don't time them right, then a lot of people are not going to see those scares, and you're going to leave that house feeling unfulfilled.
Yeah.
But I did have runs where I timed them all, and for me, that werewolf on the bungee,
that was great.
coming right at you. Oh man, that was some of the greatest imagery, because that was one of the best werewolf suits I've seen him use too. Like from head to toe, just looked fantastic.
It looked great, and Dead Horse down below it.
Yep.
We got to see that on the tour. But there was the first run that we did, the very first run that we did of this house. I walked by, and I knew it was coming. The werewolf is coming, but it didn't. So I had it in my heart. I was all excited.
Yeah.
I was on the edge. I was like, here it comes. Here it comes. It's coming any minute now. She's going to come out. The fog effect. You got to step on that trigger right at the exact time. Launch out. Come and get me. And it didn't happen.
Right.
And I waited for what felt like an eternity, although it was probably about 75 seconds. But, it didn't happen. And that was, this house, it just had too many. It was almost like a Christopher Nolan film, for me. Like, if it works, it works. And if it doesn't hit that moment. So, as far as Goblins go, I'm afraid I'm going to have to give this one 3. Just 3 Goblins.
Well, we're not too far off then. I'm gonna give it a 3.5, like I said, because I think I enjoyed it more than you did. Like,
I think you. Yeah.
I like I said, we're talking about the characters. I love one thing we didn't mention though was like the Dracula's daughter, or is it daughter? Or I can't remember exactly, but the makeup on her looked amazing.
Yeah,
especially,
the mask,
especially
the
when
makeup
she's
great.
carrying Van Helsing's head.
Mm-hmm.
That part was awesome. So
another part though that if you missed it,
yeah,
you wouldn't have even known she died, because the only way you see it is you see the headless body, and she has to physically carry the head.
Yep.
So if you miss that, you're like,
then,
oh shit, she died. I missed it.
Then you have to hope when you go through the next catacomb that you're paying attention to that story where it shows the bride wheeling her back in a wheelbarrow and stuff. Like, you're right. So if you miss that, like it's hard to follow that narrative on there. But easy, like I said, for me, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than I thought I was. I give it a 3.5 out of 5 Goblins.
Okay. Yeah.
So moving along, this was a house. I think this one might have been number 1 for both our hype list. Is Slaughter Cinema 2.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited to talk about this one because this is a house where it was high on the hype list and it delivered. Like every single scene of the house. I know there's a couple scenes that you probably could have took or leave, but no, I thought they were all extremely well done.
Yep.
Like when you walked in, you see like the rocking zombies or the skull figures and stuff. I can't remember exactly what they're called, but it's like the rock and roll 3D, like the Dead. Looked fantastic. But my favorite set piece itself was set at the North Pole and kind of reminded me of Scrooge. And you see like a deranged Santa Claus and his elves killing people.
Killer Kringles was your favorite. Yeah.
And then one of them elves was repurposed from Tooth Fairy, catching that. So
that's the first thing I said was, "There's a damn Tooth Fairy," and you can probably hear me if we had the footage. I don't know if we were recording that. I don't know. You can. There's a damn Tooth Fairy. So
like I said, I was definitely. I was happy. Like normally when you hype something up, you're gonna have a little bit of a letdown, but I thought it was fantastic. My only critique is I wish that the house was longer, because most of these rooms you went to is like one room per scene. Then you're moving on to the next one where you go to a hallway and you see the posters that you're going to go into. So
yeah, those could have been done away with altogether and make the room bigger.
Yeah, right.
And that
exactly.
would have been a little better.
And one other room I say I love too. I can't remember the names of each one, but like the one where you're back in the old west and you can smell the roses.
Hatchet and Chains.
Yeah, Hatchet and Chains.
Demon Bounty Hunters. Yeah, I've sat and watched all these trailers, so I got it all.
It was fantastic. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. How about you?
I really did enjoy this. I did. Now, having said that, think in your mind about how many sequels are better or just as good as the originals, including films and books and things like that. It's hard to do. It's really hard to do. Do I feel like it was as good as the first? No.
No, for me it's not either.
I do not. But do I feel like it's still really good? Yes, I do. I really enjoyed the Zyborgs, the Mardi Gras murders at the beginning.
Love Zyborgs.
The Mardi Gras murders at the beginning were great. Those jesters were eating the scenery and they were dancing their asses off, and I loved it. Every time they did a kill, they would do a little shimmy, and I loved every bit of it. And I like the Zyborgs because it reminded me of Terminator. If you look up, you see the lasers and the robots.
Or you're like down in the
trenches.
Yeah, trenches, yeah.
The future war trenches. I love it. And I liked Hatchet and Chains. The shark scene in the Bloody Chum or whatever it was called was a little too short for me because it had the one actor and a couple of things.
That puppet looked great, though.
Puppet looked great. The Demon Bounty Hunters was great. The Santa Claus, I could have personally take or leave that just because, it's like, I don't really care for a...
But you've been a good boy this year, Lee.
You've been a good boy, Lee. Made your holiday house. I don't really care for that. And the demon, or not the demon, but the zombie clowns.
Yeah.
You know, I could really take or leave that. But other than that, I mean, this house was great. It had the cars, it had the screen, it had the feeling. And when you're standing in line, like the first night that we ran the house, you're standing in line, you're seeing the trailers, you're smelling the fog, you got the old cars. You're really psyched for this.
Yeah.
And I felt good about that. And this house still is high on my list, but it's got its flaws, but it's still good. Yeah.
One thing that would stink though, and which we already knew at the time because we already seen like the facades and stuff they're building. Because I did love that facade of the drive-in theater.
Yeah.
If you actually went to this house first and were waiting in line during the day, you totally missed that atmosphere.
Missed that trailers, all the trailers.
And that would suck in itself. So like we were smart enough to know, hey, let's make sure we go once it's actually past.
Give
dusk.
it a few hours to go. Yeah.
So I was glad we done that. One thing I love before we get to our Goblins on this one that I have to say about this house, this was the house too that had something for everybody because it had so many scenes. You got your science fiction, you got your horror, you got your cheesy like 70s stuff like with the bloody chum. Like I said, I think about Piranha back in the day.
Yeah.
So it had something for everybody, for every horror connoisseur's taste in there. So.
And I think if you do, I'm not trying to cut
no,
you off.
no,
If you do away with those hallways, because you think about it, so you went into the hallway. And the hallway was 1, 2, 3, 4 walls with the poster on it. And then you went into the room with the actual action taking place. Get rid of those hallways or shorten them to where it's just the poster and now you're in the room.
Right.
The only one that really did that successfully was it had 2 rooms instead of 1 was the Heavy Metal Hell 3D that you talked about. Because the first room is the bedroom with the TV, the record spinning backwards, Hell Satan, and all that stuff. And then you go into the other room with the characters.
Right.
That was actually the only room, I believe, that had 2 separate rooms. So make those rooms a little bit longer, and this house would have been just banging.
Oh, I agree.
But every time, the strippers, we forgot about the mummy strippers. I mean, there's so much. I think what we'll do, fans, is we'll do a separate video on this house, and we'll break it down room by room and kind of talk about the highs and lows of those rooms.
It definitely deserves it.
So,
and then that'd be one too. Like I said in that video, friends and fans, we can actually then elaborate. What would you want to see a house come from this?
So let's do that. We'll mark that on our handy dandy notebook, and we'll bring that to you here on the channel.
So then, without further ado, then on the Goblin scale, I'd have to give this one about 4 out of 5. Like I said, it's still like it's definitely not a perfect house by no means because some rooms, like we were talking about, felt rushed, but the rooms that work really work for me.
Yep, I'm going with you. 4. It's a 4 Goblins. Yes, it's 4. Guess what I'm selling today?
Great minds think alike on that one.
That's right.
Last but not least, friends and fiends, that's going to take us to the museum. Evil Adam, I'm going to kick it over to you. Give us your initial thoughts on this one.
Okay. The museum.
The Rotting
Deadly
Stone.
Unrest, the Rotting Stone. So the first night we got to the event, I mean, I know you had been to opening weekend, but the first night that we got there together, this was the first house we ran during our course of HHN. And, you know, I kind of had a little bit of low expectations for it starting out. Think about it. This is where Darkest Steel was last year. So you have some big shoes to fill. You have some, because Darkest Steel was badass. You have some Apollo Creed versus Rocky Balboa shoes to fill.
Right.
And it just let me down in that department. You know, you got repurposed bloaters in the last scene where the stone is and some of the other scenes. It's too tight. It's too constricted. I realize and respect what they tried to do, but I feel like, once again, same with Monsters, with Universal Monsters.
Right.
You tried to tell a story. Oh, this is going to be a mask that's possessed, and this is going to be such and such, and this is going to be a Viking ship, and this is going to... You bit off more than you could chew. Instead of sticking to one consecutive theme like Darkest Steel, where man sells his soul, now you're going to watch him go down the road to hell and watch his life get corrupted room by room. This one was, we're going to take a huge bite and just put all this stuff in, and it kind of fell short for me. So I really didn't enjoy this one as much as the others.
I enjoyed it more than I thought I would because this was one I had really low on my hype list. So I guess I went in with lower expectations. But now I totally agree with you. I felt like they really missed the mark on what they could have done with this because in our videos when we talk about the hype, there's so much that they could have done with the museum to really Like, I'm not saying go out full and make it wacky, but you could have more fun with some of the stuff that you were doing.
Yeah.
But now there were some effects in this house that I really, really liked, but I just wish they would have had more of. Like when you walked in that first room and you seen, it almost looked like another reused bloater, but it rose out of the desk, like when the stone lit up.
Yeah, the desk is alive kind of thing.
And but that suit, like how it filled up, I thought that was an amazing effect how they done that. So I have to give them props for it. Another thing I wish they would have done too is like set design and set dressing. It felt very bare in there.
It did in those last few rooms. Where remember the last few rooms where there's nothing but the posters, hanging down, or what do you call them? The banners are hanging down from the ceiling. There was nothing. You go, if I remember correctly, you go straight, you go right, you go another right, and then another left, and it's just that last couple of rooms with nothing but banners, and you're kind of even waiting for something to pop out. Something's going to pop out from behind the banner. Nothing even happened. There wasn't even a boo hole there.
Right.
So what those rooms were empty. So like, I think that they bit off a little bit more than they could chew with this one.
It's not only that. It's like I said. It's like they're thinking to themselves, "What can we do?" And it's like they really didn't have a plan. Like I said, it's kind of like a mishmash, like you're talking about, and just didn't have a full plan of what we can do. Where can we take this? Like what? There's so much with the museum. Like I said, I can think of a lot of things. We talked about like crazy presidents. Like maybe it's like a hall museum.
Oh, that would be great. Crazy president, like the Hall of Presidents has gone evil.
It's just so much. So
there's an evil samurai, coming at you with a sword. You have the time period. Like there's a caveman, a caveman with like a big, what do you call those? With the teeth, the big cats, coming out. There's like all these crazy characters are coming out to get you.
Right.
And they kind of
No, I agree with you. So as far as the Goldblum scale goes, like I said, I still enjoyed it for what it was. I thought it had some good scares in it. So I'm gonna go a 2.5 out of 5. Like I said, I think it does its job. It's serviceable, but there's definitely a lot more they could have done with it.
I think I'm right there with you. About 2.5. I knew when we got in there, and unfortunately, we did miss a lot of the scares the first run. Because I remember I got only a few of them, and you were in front of me, and you didn't get hardly any of them. You just kept going.
Now, I definitely had better luck opening weekend than I did the runs that we had when we went there. Because like when I first went that opening weekend, you had the security guard coming out. Something was like going on with him.
Right.
And like I said, it had more with that. But it's like I said, there's a lot left to be desired with this house.
Yeah. So is it what? So you're giving it 2.5? Yep, I'm right. I've got to be right there with you on that because it just you're in the same area where not only did we have Darkest Deal, but we've had what was the other Descendants?
Descendants and
there.
The puppets.
Not the puppets. I mean, you can't even Puppet theater. Captive audience was in this house.
Yes.
So was Descendants, which was pretty good. Not Puppets level, but Darkest Deal was in this house.
Darkest Deal was awesome.
And so it's got some big shoes that it let down.
Well, there you have it, friends and feeds. But before we conclude, then, since we've ranked the scare zone, and now we've done the rankings for the houses, or excuse me, the reviews for the scare zones and the reviews for the houses.
Yep.
Let's do the final review for the event overall. So we'll have a video for the coconut, but we'll briefly mention that as well, like we did in the last video. Like I said, I thought
the coconut was awesome.
Coconut was awesome. Scare zones. Definitely mentioned we feel the budget cuts. Some of the houses you could feel that you felt them more in the zones, I think, than you did the houses. But there's still some things in the houses where you see a lot of repurposing.
If you go every year, you'll notice the ones that were in the houses.
Right.
Yeah.
So with that being said, Adam, what would be your Goldblum scale for HHN 33 to put a bow on it?
To put a bow, I haven't thought about that overall scale yet. Comparing it to last year. I'm going to say, you know what, though? I had a really good time. I had a really good time, despite, some of the houses not living up to what I wanted them to. I'm going to go ahead and go with, a 4.
I'm right there with you. I'll give it a 4 as well. And like talking about the houses and how some of them didn't live up to the hype, I still say this year, though, and it's one where there wasn't a single house, though, that I would say is just the worst house ever, and I would never do it again. So,
and as far as fun goes, as far as did I have a good time watching you get scared, and you watch me get scared, and we're going through them, and we're getting got, or we're not, or we're watching somebody else. Yeah, I think that I had a really good time this year.
I did too, and I'm looking forward already to HHN 34.
That's right. So I'm going with the 4 Goldblums.
Yep.
Here.
Same here. So, friends and fiends, let us know houses 6 through 10. How did you feel about them? Where would you rank them on the Goldblum scale? Do we rank them too high? Do we have them too low? Let us know. How did you feel about the event overall this year as well? Did it meet your expectations, or do you think they need to pick up the ball that they dropped this year for HHN 34? Let us know in the comments.
Yep. And as always, remember to stay spooky and tune in. And remember.
Yeah. Who's the ghost with the most?